So, I'm Mr. Brady. I'm Miss Ansley's husband, and I'm so happy to be with y'all this Sunday to talk to y'all about moral decision making and God's relationship with you. So, I want to tell you a story. Once, there was this puppet called Pinocchio, and you already know the story. So basically, it's a puppet, and he is created by this puppet master, but he's not like anybody else. And every time he says a lie, his nose grows bigger. Could you imagine if your nose grew bigger every time you told a lie? I mean, my mom would catch me a lot. So, what's key to this story that I really want y'all to know is he had this little cricket apprentice friend. And his name was Jimmy, I think. Jiminy. Okay, so his friend was Jiminy Cricket. And Jiminy almost basically acted as kind of like his little voice in his head that told him, maybe you shouldn't say that, Pinocchio. Maybe you should just tell the truth. But for some reason, Pinocchio didn't listen. Some reason, Pinocchio just felt that he needed to tell the lie, but he acted as his conscience. That's a big word. Conscience is a word that we use whenever maybe you know that something's right or wrong in your head, and you have that little same voice that Jiminy acted as for Pinocchio in your head that tells you if you are making the right decision, or if you're being nice or mean to somebody, or if you're treating your mom and dad the way that they're supposed to be treated. So maybe you're asking the question, why should I be nice? Why should my conscience be nice? I like to remind you that you walk around different than every other creature on this earth. Let's go back to Genesis chapter 1:27. So God created man in his own image. In the image of God, he created him. Male and female, he created them. So I ask you, does God have long flowing hair like Father Brad? Or does he have shorter hair, kind of like, the traditional guy cut like, I guess, Father Jamin? Or more traditional now. Thanks. Does God have arms? Preface, Father Brad's hair is great.
Jesus had long hair.
Does God have arms? Does God have a face? In some ways, in every way, that's probably not what they mean by God's image and likeness. What that really means is God is all goodness. God is what it means to be good. So, humans were marked at creation with this image of goodness in them, this ability to will good, to make good things happen, to participate in good things, and to do good things that other creatures on this earth could not possibly do. So, if that's the case, then there has to be something that would help us with this relationship, to understand it a little bit better. I would probably start with these things that St. Thomas Aquinas coined. The first word is eternal law. Eternal law is a big fancy term that basically means the thoughts of God, God's willing into the world, it's basically God's plan for the world and God's plan for all of creation. So, if we are going to focus on eternal law, then we have to understand what natural law is. Natural law is super important, and again, fancy words, but natural law basically means our ability as human beings to participate in eternal law. It's our ability to participate in God's good plan, to do good things to bring God's kingdom here on earth. What's important about all of this is for us, our relationship with God is kind of key to doing this. So when you, mom and dad, get to go, or you and grandma get to go to Mass, and y'all go every Sunday, it's important because God asked us to do a few things. And the first 3 commandments he asked us to do are kind of key to understanding the rest of the commandments. The first commandment is, I am your only God, and you shall not worship false gods. So basically, God's trying to tell us, hey, I am your God, and I want you. I want a relationship with you. The second one is, don't say the Lord's name in vain. What he's trying to say is, don't talk bad about me. Why would you talk bad about me? And so, he's trying to say, hey, have a relationship with me. I'm going to set some parameters so that we can have a good relationship. And then the third one is, keep the Sabbath holy. Sabbath was a word used for the day that people used to stop and do everything in ancient Judaism and just worship the Lord. And they would rest. Because on the 7th day of creation, God rested. So, whenever these 3 things where God says that he wants you to only be focused, wants you to be focused on his relationship with you, when he asks you to not talk about him badly, when he says that he wants time with you, he's trying to tell you, how do you have a healthy relationship with him? The ways that you may see it in your life is whenever you were a baby, you were baptized. And that means that a baptism is basically when you're introduced into the body of Christ. It's whenever water's put over you, and by means of that, you are transformed into something new, something beautiful, and it's by means of the Lord. It's by the Lord's doing. And then you'll see it in your first communion. If you have received it or you haven't, basically whenever you receive your first communion, it's whenever you are receiving Jesus Christ, body, blood, soul, and divinity. You're receiving him through means of transubstantiation, which is a fancy word that we're not going to go over. But I lost my train of thought. But basically, it's important to know that you constantly are participating in a relationship with Jesus in a more simple way, in a way that maybe you can think of right now. Think of the times that you've gotten to pray with Jesus. Maybe it was a time where you get to pray before you get to go to bed with your mom and dad. Maybe it was a time you got to pray at the dinner table during holidays. Or maybe it's the time you got to go to Christmas Mass most recently, and you got to see the incense in the air. You got to see Father read his Christmas poem homily that he does every year. It's those moments where you get to actually come and worship the Lord that the Lord calls us to. The most important thing to remember is we act a lot like who we hang out with. So, if I hang out with my friend John, I'm going to start probably acting like my friend John. John doesn't exist. But basically, in the same way, we're a lot like that, and we're made to be like that. We're made to be in union with the Lord, which was what happened with Adam and Eve. But we chose to sever that, or Adam and Eve chose to sever that union. And so from then on, the Lord has basically been calling for us to come back. So much so that he sent his only begotten Son to do it. So when we focus on all of these things, the reason we emphasize a relationship is because the only way that you can form a conscience that's solid, that's rooted in what we're made to be, which is in the image and likeness of God, is returning back to God, because we're made for him and we're made in his image and likeness. So what I want you to do is I want you to think about the last time that you got to pray with your mom and dad. Maybe it was the last time you got to pray with your grandmother, your grandfather. your aunt, your uncle. It could be anybody. I want you to think about, did you actually tell the Lord that you loved him? Because the whole purpose behind all of this, the whole purpose that, we do the things that we do is because the Lord loves us. And so we should return the favor. We should tell him we love him. So I want you to think back to Pinocchio and Jiminy Cricket and remember how Pinocchio kept lying and so his nose would grow and Jiminy Cricket was the little voice in his ear. The more that we listen to that voice in our head and form it to our prayer life and we form it to going to Mass and things like that, the more we make sound decisions. The more we make the right and good decision. So, my challenge to you is, I want you to go home and I want you to try to just pray for at least 2 minutes a day. I'm not going to ask you to do 5 because I know grown men that can't do 5. We give you 2 minutes a day. The common attention span for a teenager is about 7 minutes. And so I could imagine someone between kindergarten to 5th grade would be even tougher. So 2 minutes. And I want you to just tell the Lord what's on your mind. He's a pretty good listener. And if you're willing, listen to what he has to say. It's key to how you form your conscience, how you make moral decisions, and it's key to that relationship, which is super important. So, I just want to thank y'all for letting me be here, and I hope you have a great Sunday.
Who that? Who that?
That's
Who
right.
that said they gonna beat them Saints?
Hopefully not the Buccaneers the third time.
Not Tom Oldie.